these idols or the picture of a body represent a leader or a leader of a nation or an organization. Through this shloka we can understand. पृष्ठ में राष्ट्र मुद्र मनसो ग्रीवाश्य श्रोणी उरु रत्नी जननु विश्व मेडग्नि सर्वतः. May our back to be like the nation, abdomen, both shoulder, neck, both waist, knees, nourish the subjects with our organs, and these organs to be used whole to serve the nation. Vishwa means the subjects of nation are my body parts, and all these body parts are to be used to serve the nation. With this, I welcome Professor Shweta Anand, and I welcome, I think, Diksha, will you be introducing Professor Shweta Anand?
Yes, sir.
Please continue.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. A very good afternoon. I welcome you again in the last session of the Spectator Development Program. Before I introduce our last speaker, I will start with the sharing one Vedic shlok with you. This is from Rig Veda 10.107.6. Tameva Rishi Tamu Brahma Nama Hurrigyane Samaga, which means that a Brahman or a Rishi will impose his or her knowledge on others for giving them a right path. And it is the secret responsibility of a Brahman to continue offer knowledge. Here the Brahman is a teacher who is having a prime responsibility to share their knowledge with the society and to give the benefit and give them a right path for the nation and for the development of the organization and the well-being. So now I would like to introduce our renowned speaker of this last session, Professor Shweta Anand. Professor Shweta Anand is Dean Academics and Dean University School of Management at Gautam Buddha University. She has qualified in MCOM, PGDM in Finance, ICWII, and also PhD in Wealth Management. She has more than 2.5 decades of experience, and she started her career by serving in Indian financial institutions and moved on to more challenging and global roles in IT multinational companies as a domain expert. And thereafter, entered into academics in 2018. While in academics, she has authored several high-impact publications in various journals and books. She has also organized funded programs and conferences. She has successfully guided several PhD scholars, and she also serves on various panels, editorial, and advisory boards. And today, she will deliver her lecture on implementing change for excellence. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. I would like to place on record my appreciation of Professor Pankaj Madanji and Dr. Suyash and all the volunteers. They've been doing an excellent work and very streamlined and very well organized FDP. I'm sure the participants must now be full of knowledge. Last 1 week has been maybe a overdose in terms of so much of quality content coming in every day. You must be happy to know that this session is the last and now training gets over. So you will now get time to think over and implement all that you have learned. My topic is implementing change for excellence.
You can put on your camera.
Yeah.
So that participants can see you on your camera.
Okay. The topic is implementing change for excellence. The moment we hear the word change, we feel that feeling of resistance between us. So we have this feeling, why change? Why should we always keep doing things differently? Everybody gets new ideas and then they push it on us, they implement it on us. So change is not a very nice word that we like to hear. So why change anything? Why is there any absolute need for any kind of change? Can you switch to next slide, please? So why should we change? Sometimes change is inevitable. Sometimes we need to be part of the change before things change us, or maybe the organization changes you and they find you too rigid and they want you to move out and let somebody else more flexible come in. So sometimes we really don't get a choice, and we realize that change is something that's expected of us when we're part of an organization. Change is something that we expected of us when you're part of a family. You can't tell the child that I'm not comfortable using a smartphone, don't send me a WhatsApp, just send me a SMS. So those are things that really we must change ourselves and move with the times. So why change? One, to exist in the market. If you need to be a good, up-to-date, skilled employee, then you have to change with the times. If technology is changing, if the kind of gadgets being used is changing, then you have to learn, you have to adopt them. System doesn't give you a choice. For your own survival in the workplace, you will soon realize that as you are growing more experienced,
Excuse
older.
me, ma'am. Ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt. Ma'am, please put on your camera. Please turn on your camera so that participants can view, uh, can see you also, ma'am. If you are able to turn on your camera. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We are getting the reception.
It's
Thank you.
good
Thank you.
now. Thank
So to survive in the workplace, one has to be as hands-on with the new skill set that is available as the youngest joinee who has joined recently. So it's very important that as you are growing more experienced, you have to realize you're also becoming a more expensive resource. And if somebody who is maybe 1/10 your cost is smarter than you and can do things faster, and he can use all the available technology and quickly get things done, then probably your management may start thinking, why not hire two such smart persons and do away with one expensive employee? Okay. So nowadays it's a matter of survival that we have to learn to change with the expectations that the environment has from us. Okay. Third is, sometimes you need to change the way things are happening in your department, in your organization, in your company, for the reason that times are very turbulent and we are seeing it. Okay, sometimes it's some kind of a scam like subprime crisis, sometimes something else. But the current scenario where your GDP is actually shrinking by like 23% for the first time since GDP has been recorded, you find things very turbulent everywhere. Organizations are struggling to survive. Organizations are struggling to pay salaries, to sustain the cost that they have, since revenues have got hit very badly. Okay. Now that revenue is reduced to a fraction, how to handle the cost is becoming an issue. So if you can't handle cost and you can't move on, then the only option left is closure. So companies are trying very hard to see how they can constantly reduce cost and survive to the maximum possible time till things change again and revenue starts tickling inside again. Okay. So for the organizations to survive, again, this innovation change, this is much required. Right? Okay. So now if we decide that, okay, it is inevitable and change has to happen, then what should change? All right. Can we go to next slide? So what is this change that is expected from us? Expected change can be anything. Okay. This change could be maybe just to learn a new skill so that we are still productive. And as academicians, we've all realized that since this lockdown and other things happened, we've all reskilled. We have learned how to use online meetings. We have learned how to use online blackboards. We have learned how to interact with students online, how to use that chat, how to use that putting the hand up and raising a query. So we've all learned that the only way to survive and still ensure that everybody's interest is protected and the course continues and the students are able to complete a 2-year degree in 2 years. We've all relearned our skills. We have unlearned what we knew as a eye connect kind of teaching, and we have all learned to use the new method of teaching. So sometimes just to stay productive and continue what you have been doing, you need to reskill yourself. Okay? Uh, a lot of my experience comes from practice of management. And though I'm a financial services person, I was also there in IT industry for a fair amount of time as a domain expert for banking and financial services. I realized there that for them, reskilling was so routine. So they know that Java is now an old language and you have to learn J2E, and then training sessions would start, and all these employees, whether lower level or middle management, they would all go in for trainings, and then they would also try and get a certification on their own. So reskilling as per the need in these high technology companies, whether it's telecom or IT, that's a part and parcel for them. Mhm. However, for us now, in every line, we realize that reskilling is important. So even in academics, we've seen drastic changes that we made recently, and nobody could resist and say, no, I'm not comfortable with computer. I can only teach like this. So everybody had to reskill to make sure that things happen. The second thing that we can do to make this change happen is find a new way. So that innovation. So that innovation could be either to save time. So either what you have been doing, you do it in a different way so that it gets done faster. So if something was happening 1 unit in an hour, you are now doing maybe 2 units in an hour. So 50% time. So time saved is also money saved. So the same overhead cost, you are doing double the productivity. So time saving is also a way of reducing cost. Then your objective could be to save cost, to use lower cost resources, or to. So let's use some examples. I'll share some from my own experience, and maybe one or two of you can also share something that you have implemented and that has resulted in a positive change for your organization. Okay. We had a client when I was in IT company who was into giving out automobile loans, and he wanted us to do process re-engineering so that the cost would reduce and the company would become more profitable and viable. So the process that we changed for them was that instead of the physical papers coming in and then moving from one desk to another desk and no tracking mechanism in terms of where the backlog was, who was processing how many cases in a day, what we suggested was a simple change. We said, we are developing a system for you. So the moment you get an application, you immediately scan it, convert it into a soft copy, give it a number, a unique number, and then assign it to any of your executives. So now for every executive, you will be able to see how many cases were assigned, how many cases have been completed and decision taken. If something is missing and the executive is going to ask the customer to add another paper, so he knows which particular case number. So there was a number to every application. He has to attach it, complete it. To take the papers from here to there. The control and tracking mechanism became faster. So some employees who always have this smart acumen of looking very busy, but finally the output is almost nothing, and we know such people. It was very easy to see how many cases were completed by each person. And then if there are any issues and some particular application is stuck for too long, as an exception, management could intervene and see what exactly was the issue. Okay. So just converting it from papers to a electronic format which could be mailed across, it became a much faster process. Okay. Then initially I was working for a financial service called Stockholding. And that was the time when we were moving from physical shares to electronic shares, and it was becoming mandatory by SEBI, and people had to open a demat account. So though our management allowed, at that point in time, I was handling the center at Ahmedabad, and Gujarat is a very concentrated amount of shares held by a lot of people. Most people invest in shares over there. So all the areas near around Ahmedabad, there were a lot of people wanting to open a demat account and convert those physical shares into electronic shares. So we had an option to open up small branches in every area. However, I realized that this conversion was only a time-bound activity. So maybe in the next 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, all the physical shares which were around in that state will get converted into electronic. But after that, just moving shares, electronic balance from one account to another account was an easy task. Then what will we do with all these branches and employees that we have added to our branch? Okay. So bearing that long-term view in mind, what we did was, rather than opening our own branches, we tied up with a bank over there, and that bank had branches in different areas, and we told them, see, it's going to be a service that you will give to your customers. So other than having banking services, in the same place your customers can get access to demat services. And we created a schedule after that MOU with the bank, and on Monday employee of ours would go to, let's say, one particular branch in location A for 4 hours. Then he would go to location B for 4 hours. And then he would come back again to that branch on next Monday for 4 hours. So the customers knew that if they don't want to travel far and want access to demat services, they have to come on Monday between this time and this time. So this same employee of ours on 5 working days was covering 10 different areas. So in one day, he would cover 2 areas. And we invested 0 rupees in infrastructure, except for his travel that we had to pay him local conveyance. But then the infrastructure was that of the bank. The bank gained because their customers got access to more services in the same umbrella. We gained because we did not have to spend any amount on infrastructure. We only had to send our person to every branch, and evening he would come back to the base branch and deposit all those shares. So it was a win-win situation, and we did not spend money. We also used a franchisee model where we created certain agents who would go to all these interior rural areas. Even in the rural areas in Gujarat, a lot of farmers invest a lot of money in shares, so they had physical shares. So these individuals would go to all these rural areas, help the farmer fill a demat opening form, also get them to fill all those forms for converting shares into electronic. They're called demat request form. And he would come back and deposit these with us. So for every account opening form that he would deposit with us with his code on it, franchisee code, we used to pay the franchisee 50 rupees per account opened. So over the period of 1 month, we would tabulate all his amount due and give him the amount. So we did not have to worry about getting into the interior areas. The business poured into our branch through these franchisees also. Okay. So that was a very simple thing to do. However, it was very significant at that point in time, because actually after 8 or 9 months, all the physical shares had slowly got converted into electronic. And then when we realized that a person is going to these branches and there is very little volumes coming, we started reducing that. And people were also comfortable, since everything was already electronic. They could give us instructions online to move the shares around. Okay. So that was another example how we implemented change. Then during this process, there used to be huge volumes of people who would come to the counter. So the front desk, as a habit till then, used to have a half-an-hour lunch break. Okay. And people who have come there and they are waiting for the counter to open again after lunch break, and they're themselves hungry, and they are standing there outside the counter, they would find it very frustrating, that half an hour of lunch break. So we did something very simple. We said only one person at a time would go behind, and there was just one table and one chair kept over there, just to make sure that only one person could have lunch there. So we reduced the space allocated for eating, which earlier used to be a meeting room, and a good 10-12 people would sit down and laugh, and all those noises would go out, and it was very odd. So we said that only one person at a time will go for lunch. Now, because only one would go and others would wait for their turn, the person who would go for lunch would hardly spend 5 to 6 minutes, quickly eat his lunch, wrap up, clean the table, and then come back to the counter. The next person would go. So there was no money spent. It was just a procedural change. But the impact was so significant that, one, all those disturbing noises of people laughing and having lunch while customers are frustrated and waiting outside, that stopped. Two, the counter was never closed. The customers were constantly getting their service, and one person going in between was not impacting anybody. Three, the total amount spent per person reduced to 5 minutes. So 25 minutes of productivity was the additional gain that we got from each person. So this was another change that I remember we had made. Sometimes HR very smartly changes the way things are analyzed or the costing is done, and that changes people's behavior. So without changing anything else on the ground, not buying any new equipment, nothing, sometimes HR just says that instead of giving you fixed or not costing the department for electricity, we have now installed a meter, and all that the electricity that is being consumed by your floor, we will cost it to your department. Okay. So the moment they change the procedure, everybody becomes conscious and they say नहीं, हमारा profitability department का कम हो जाएगा, so we will get less bonus. So let us be very careful. So when we are going for lunch, we have to make sure that we have to close those AC ducts and lights and so on. So everybody changes their behavior, because then it is going to directly impact them. Okay. Till such time that there is no focus on electricity consumed, people will really waste electricity and not close AC even for 1 minute, or the light or the fan. So then people are behaving differently. So if you change the pattern in which you are going to access people, and HR can do it very fast, just a announcement that they have to make, the behavior changes and the cost gets reduced. So if your objective is to reduce cost or to increase revenue, then the best changes are the ones where you don't have to make a lot of investment. sometimes when you ask people to think innovatively and give ideas how things can be done better, sometimes the kind of ideas you get is, let's buy a very fast machine, a very smart computer. But those are not viable because sometimes you are struggling to survive and a new investment is not possible. So the best ideas for change are the ones where probably you're not even spending one single penny, but it is a behavior change and that results in a cost saving. Okay. Another thing is you can give an award. This was very prevalent, though I don't see it in academics, except maybe some IIMs where they award good high impact publication. In organizations, we used to have different kinds of small awards, and these awards were there in the hand of the team leader or team manager. So, for example, we used to have this spot award concept where it was just a few envelopes you could get at the start of the month, having one gift voucher of 1,000 rupees. That's it. Okay. But it was a very interesting spot award that you are announcing to the entire bay and then giving it to that person. So we had one person who was working in IT in night shift, and this person used to do something very interesting. He used to come in night shift and he used to sleep. So one day, the guard told us that this person sleeps in the night. So he was worried that he comes and sleeps, so he should tell us. So he told us. So what we started doing was we started monitoring that are there any tickets or any queries that went which was not answered in time. Okay. So every client has a SLA, service level agreement. So in our case, it was that if something pops up on the screen, then within 90 seconds, a response had to go. And that could be analyzed from data. So we realized that he was not missing any of the queries or chats which were coming. But the guard kept telling us, ye aaj bhi soya tha, ye kal bhi soya tha. Okay. So one day I called him and I asked him, I said, what do you do? How is it that you can sleep, but you are not missing any of those issues? So technically there is no problem, but then there is a concern how you manage it. So he told us, he said, see, I'm telling you, but you don't share it with anybody. I have created a small software for myself. So he showed us and he demonstrated, and he said that the moment there is any flicker on the screen, it will make a beep. So the moment there is some query that comes, it would beep and he would wake up and immediately respond to it. So it was very interesting, but he did it for himself because he wanted to have a normal routine of sleeping in the night. But we were very happy to see that somebody could think of something like this. So we told him, no, there's no harm. We will now take your this particular software and ask you to build it in a bigger way so that it can be implemented in all the screens. So he said, are you sure you're not angry with me or annoyed with me? No, I said, no. And I immediately called everybody. So we immediately announced to everybody. So everybody was told that this person had done something very interesting and innovative and very useful for us. And we gave him that small spot award of 1,000 rupees. And he was really amazed because he was very worried that he may probably lose his job also. Then we asked him to develop that software for a wider implementation. And he did that. Okay. So once we implemented it all the screens, we realized that instead of having more people in the night shift, we could reduce it down to maybe just 1 or 2 persons. So if any of the systems will beep, this person will go there and answer that query. So we created a bay where we put all these desktops, and so anything will beep, the person will move his chair to that direction and handle that aspect. So we really gained in that whole process because less people were forced to come in the night shift and have a health concern, and there was no impact on the client. The client was happy that we used innovation to reduce his cost also. So he gave us a better rate per hour which we could give to the employee. So it was a very interesting thing that happened. So these kind of small appreciation or award is another way that you can bring around a positive change, and people start thinking in that direction. How can I get more revenue for the company, or how can I reduce the cost, or how can I create more value for this organization? So in our case now in academics, if people start thinking that how do I create more value, I bring more projects, I write better impact factor publication, all that will translate into points, and then the organization gets better NAC accreditation or AICT approval, so on. So people start thinking differently if you recognize that part and award it. So even if it's a very small award, it really brings about a change. Okay. So we're moving to the next slide. What is this process of managing the change? Okay, before we start on this slide, if any of you have done something, brought around some small change which had an impact and it was appreciated, I would really want at least one or two of you to unmute and talk about it. Anything that you did and it had maybe even a small impact, but it was appreciated and then it was continued. All right, I'll continue. So what is this process of implementing or managing the change? Usually the formal process, how it happens is there is a request for change. So in this case of this example, this boy did not request a change. However, when I realized that it was something useful and we should implement, I raised the request for change. So once the request for change comes in, what the management does, it tries to see the impact of this particular change. So understanding and simulating on paper the impact of change is a very important step, because you can't actually implement it, realize something has gone wrong, and then come back and redo things. So this impact analysis is the most important aspect of change. Let me give you one more example. In our one of these companies, in our branch, we had 6 units. So they were called enterprise groups. So there were 6 units. One of these units was always giving very little contribution. Okay. So typically companies tend to calculate the profitability of every unit, and you have to justify the existence of your unit. So contribution is total revenue that the unit earns minus the variable cost. So the variable cost is your salaries, your workstation cost, all that is your variable cost. So you minus that, and then you say this much contribution is what I'm giving to the branch. So there was one particular enterprise group that we had. It was called GE, General Electric, because they were handling only that client. And there were 400 people that they had placed on the vendor side. So 400 employees, IT employees who were working for GE. But what was very typical for this particular enterprise group was every quarter, the contribution that they used to give used to be negative. So either minus 5% or minus 10%, they were never giving a positive contribution. So the enterprise group in which I was, we were always giving a 40% plus contribution. So we were always boasting around and saying, okay, see, the average comes down to 25% for the entire branch. People like us giving 40%, but then somebody giving negative, somebody giving just the same amount. So the average comes down. So when these kind of discussions would happen, the other EG heads would typically tell the branch head, why don't we close this account? Because he is giving a minus 5%, 10% every time. So he brings down the average. So why don't we close it? So this issue was discussed in detail, and quarter on quarter, the same demand coming from other groups. So one day the branch head called me and he said, see, you're a finance person. So you tell me, is this viable? Can we close down one branch? And then the average of the entire branch will look better because that minus will go away. Okay. So I said, why don't you do it on paper, understand it, and then let's discuss. So he said, how do we do it on paper? You tell me. So I asked him, I said, okay, let's write down all these 6 names. How much revenue comes from each enterprise group? So we wrote down. Then he said, what do you reduce? The salaries? Okay, reduce everybody's salary. So when the salary was reduced, everybody still had a plus amount. Okay. Then there was a overhead charge per head into number of employees in that group, which was then reduced. So that was the overhead charge. So the company is spending some money on every workstation. So the furniture cost, the rental cost, the electricity cost, the insurance cost, the security cost, all that was converted into some cost per workstation. So we used to have it as 6,000 per workstation per person. So that would then be reduced from all the groups. And then finally, some of them were still in plus, but one enterprise group was becoming minus. Okay. I said, now you want to close this group. So you remove this column and then recalculate. So he said, okay, let's do it. And so the revenue of the rest of the 5 groups remained the same. Okay. But the total went down because one revenue was now 0. Then the cost of all the 5 groups related to salaries remained the same. But overall total cost also went down, but that was okay because revenue was also not there. Now, what happened to this overhead charge which every unit was paying? So they were earlier paying 5,000 per employee per month. But now, even if one particular enterprise group is closed, okay, your total overhead for that branch was not changing. We still were paying the same rental. We still had the same cost on insurance, on security, electricity. Nothing was changing. So I said, now you will have to recalculate your per workstation cost because your cost is not coming down. Your denominator has changed. So when they recalculated it, it was something like 7,000 per workstation per head. Okay. Then the number of employees in every group remained the same. So now when they reduced it, the cost had become bigger because what was being absorbed by that G group was now divided amongst the other 4 groups. Now for all the other units, the profitability reduced. So ours also came below 40%. We came down to 32%. For every group, the profitability went down. So he said, "Ye kya hua?" I said, you're not realizing it that this group is taking over some of your overhead on its own. Independently, they are taking care of their own cost of salary. But because of this overhead that you pile on them, they become negative. Okay. So when you do it on paper and you realize that if you were to actually close that group, the profitability of the entire branch will go down, of every enterprise group will go down. And I said, plus, what are you going to do with those 400 people who come back from the client side? I said, you can't kick them out because it's going to be in media tomorrow. Okay. So I said, you have to first do a detailed impact analysis on paper before you implement it. They got the point. Okay. As a result, that enterprise group did not close because it would not have been good for anybody then. So this impact analysis is a very significant step that has to be done before you actually allow implementation. So once you've done it, then you decide you are going to allow that change, not allow the change, or send it back for review and ask for a new change. So once you allow, then it gets implemented, and then you are going to continuously watch the impact of that change. So you expected something when you allowed the change, but the actual on the ground may not be the same feedback or impact. It may be different. So you have to keep monitoring it. If you feel things need intervention, then you have to intervene also. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. All right. The next slide is implementing the change. What happens is when you introduce a change, nobody likes it. Okay? There is shock. They say, I can't believe how can they come out with this kind of a notice? How can they implement this? This is ridiculous. This is derogatory. So in UP, my university is in Uttar Pradesh. There was an implementation which the government wanted us to do, which we did in our university also. They wanted us to implement biometric attendance. Okay. So the moment that notice came, management immediately said, okay, we are buying biometric machines and we are putting it everywhere and you have to put your attendance there. There was such a huge shock and resentment from everybody. They're saying we are academicians. we need a lot of freedom to and creativity to be productive and think of good research. So these kind of compulsory that you have to come at this time and you cannot go before this time is not good. So there was a huge shock. Then there was denial. I'm not going to do it. Let us protest. You also don't mark, so on and so forth. Okay. There was anger. People were very upset. How can you all let this implement? You all as deans don't go and revolt in the meetings. You are allowing everything to happen. So there was all kinds of discussion and debate that happened. Then there was bargaining. And there were some people who said, see, we are not staying on the campus, so we don't go for lunch. So you let us go half an hour early in the evening. So all kinds of suggestions came. And then finally they realized that nobody is listening and it has to be done. And then there were certain follow-up notices that came saying that if we don't find biometric data in our database, we will not pay out salaries, so on. So finally, unhappily, people accepted it. And then they started marking that attendance. And then, though this implementation of change says that it leads to problem solving, the problem that got solved was there were more people available in time on their seats. But though technically, I also do not agree that that was the problem. In academics, also, as we see in a lot of good industries that do well, I think we should focus more on the output that we get per person rather than people coming in time and going in time, because that's not the whole objective. There are people who are more comfortable doing research in the night at home. That's okay. As long as the output is good, I think that's good enough. But in any case, the crux of this slide is that whenever we implement change, you find a lot of emotions come into play and people have a resistance to change. Okay? It's also because we all have this inertia and we want to stay put and we want to leave things as they were and we don't want the ball to roll. So change implementation, especially if you have not discussed it, not asked people to contribute to it, is very, very difficult to implement. So we're going to look at some ways of how you can make this change implementation better, because sometimes it's unavoidable and you have to do it. So even in this example, since it came from the government, we really did not have a choice, but probably had we discussed, explained, told about it, people would not have resisted it so much. Okay, we're going to the next slide. The democratic leadership style helps. Since sometimes there's no option but to implement that change. If you can get everybody to talk about it, discuss it, give ideas what we can change, and make it more participative, it becomes easier to do. So sometimes the reason why we resist that change is because nobody told us about it. Nobody wanted to hear our opinion on it. Nobody asked us if we could do it any other way. So if the end objective was important, maybe I could have given you a better idea and you could have done it in a better way, but you never asked me. Okay. And so this democratic leadership style, where you do discuss things with people and you're open to listen to them also. So if you say that, okay, I've discussed it, that's it, but now I will do what I want to do, but that's not democracy. That's midway. That's a little better than autocratic, but that's not democratic. Democratic is you have to be open to listen to them. Okay. There was a time when the economy was not doing well and my company was not doing well. So there was a directive saying that reduce salary cost by 20%. So that directive came to our branch saying that reduce the salary cost by 20%. So your first thought is reduce employees by 20%, so salary will get reduced by 20%. So the only good thing was that that branch head was happy that they had at least one domain expert and he would discuss financial aspects with me. So he said we need to reduce the cost by 20%. So we have to ask every group to give us names of people who can be sent out given the pink slip, and then we will be able to reduce that overall cost by 20%. So I said, why do you decide whether they will reduce employees or they will do it some other way? You just tell them to reduce the cost by 20%. Let them decide how they will do it. So he said, is there any other way? I said, you let them discuss and come back to you. So he said, okay, fine. He called a meeting and he told everybody, see, we don't have a choice. We need to reduce our salary bill by 20%. And you tell us how you will do it by tomorrow. So very interestingly, one group thought of it and then they shared it with other groups, and every group said that yes, it's a good idea and we'll implement it. So what finally got implemented is the senior most people in every group who were being paid very handsomely, they said that all the people, let's say vice president and above, we will take a salary cut, and that 20% cost of the total saving that has to come, we are going to contribute in this proportion by taking a reduction in our salary. However, we are not going to send out any employee. So the management wants lower cost, they will get it, but we are not suggesting anybody's name who has to be retrenched or sent out or forced resignation. Okay. Now, that was a very interesting thing that happened. So one group thought of it and then they told the other groups, and collectively everybody went back and told the branch head that this is what we have decided. All the seniors, you reduce in this proportion our salaries and we are not sending out anybody. That one message to the lowermost employee of the branch was such a positive that message that went out, that my boss is taking a salary cut so that I don't lose my job. And the kind of commitment we got from them and the kind of productivity that we got from them, the kind of ideas that they generated for further cost cutting was really amazing. Okay. So sometimes not forcing your idea, but asking people to tell us that this is the final objective or goal, you tell us how you are going to do it, is a very nice way of implementing change, and you will be surprised at the kind of ideas that will come back to you. And so discussing helps, listening to other people patiently really helps. A lot of people are very happy just that somebody has heard me. There is this pressure cooker example, which is very ideal. Sometimes what happens is the pressure starts building inside the cooker and then one day it will burst. Okay? So there is a whistle in place, which if it becomes too much, it lets the pressure go out and then it reduces and then there is again space inside. So a lot of people, in fact, everybody works on this principle, that things are getting pent up inside and nobody's listening to them. If you just have a meeting and you listen to everybody patiently without cutting them, without reacting to their ideas, and you just ask them to talk about what is in their mind, how do they think they can improve things, help the company survive, help the brand survive, whatever is the issue at hand, and listen to them patiently. Just having heard them out, even if you don't implement that idea, that aspect is so important to them that they were heard out and that pressure is released. They feel much calm and better. And I'm sure we've all experienced this kind of issues. So there is some very significant issue in our group. Let's say management is not bothered about promoting us, and we all go collectively and we go to the top boss, either director or vice chancellor or whoever, and we went out and we talk about all these things and we talk about everything in our mind that you're not doing this. So he listens to it patiently and he says, okay, I've heard you and I'll think over it and we'll do something. So he just tells you something like that and you all come out so relieved because all that pressure is vented out. Okay? So this listening patiently is a very important step. A lot of things just get resolved because somebody heard you very patiently. Okay. Another good thing is to ask people that, okay, this has come from top management and I need to implement it. Tell me how we should do it. So we also sometimes get some directives saying that, okay, create an academic calendar of activities that you will do, things that you will do during Corona to make this teaching learning experience very awesome. So there are some kind of directives that come. Sometimes we can't discuss how it is to that we don't get a choice to not do it, but at least if we ask people, you tell us how we can do it. So people in the team come out with very interesting suggestions. Let's start student study group, let's start area clubs, let us plan virtual tours. So how we will do it and what pace, when you ask them, one, they feel good, they've been asked, and two, the end result is much better than had you on your own or maybe with the HOD thought of and put something together. So you can get a lot of ideas in terms of how to implement, and the implementation will definitely be much better. Okay. Explaining why it has to be done, the reason for change. So when it's inevitable and you have to implement a change, at least discussing and telling them that why it is important and why there's no choice also helps out. Then being open to new ideas. Sometimes the junior most person can give you something so interesting as an idea. It's really amazing. So one has to be open to listening to new ideas, and if it's good, appreciate it and also implement it. So it gives a good example to others that everybody has a say and everybody is important. Okay. End of it, this democratic leadership style helps to break the resistance to change and gets faster implementation. So if you recall the last slide where we saw the moment a new change is introduced, there is anger, there is disgust, there is a lot of emotions in place. All that gets eased out. Yeah, thank you so much. So all this shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, all these aspects do not come into play because things were discussed with them. They gave ideas what to implement, how to implement, at what speed to implement, and it was listened to. A lot of these ideas were taken into cognizance. So all these negative emotions tend to become very small phase, and the acceptance comes in immediately. So after this line are the positive emotions. So this acceptance is much faster and better. And the ones who get convinced help us convince others, and then the problem resolving happens. All right, let's move to the next slide after that. So now that we've discussed that change is inevitable, it's probably sometimes a question of survival. We don't get a choice. We are asked to do it. The only thing we can probably vary is how we do it. So we don't have a choice in terms of resisting change. Whether it's home front, whether it's our professional life, we really must make it a habit that to become a good leader, you must not resist the change and let it fall on us, let it wash over us. And rather than thinking I can't do it, especially a lot of people have this resistance to technology and say I can't do it. In our organization also, we had change of guard recently. So the new leader that we had, he was pushing us to look at the new areas of academics. So he said, why don't you all discuss artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, 3D printing, so on so forth. Okay. We were all very comfortable in our old style of teaching, and then we had this resistance. And he said, why don't you go back and discuss with your teams? So when we went back to our teams and we discussed that what can we do on this front so that we understand and we are able to do something about it. So there was a lot of resistance initially, and they said, no, nothing to do with management. हमारा area नहीं है, वो ICT वाले देखेंगे, IT वाले देखेंगे. So there were all kinds of resistance initially. However, because we were being pushed, we kept pushing the team, and we said that okay, this Saturday let us all do some groundwork, pick up any topic related to these, and whatever that you understand, come and either present it to the class or discuss it with the class. So when people did not have a choice and it was mandatory that everybody will stand and at least talk for 5 minutes on that topic, people actually use the time to start looking up things. So people found that somebody had used blockchain in banking. So he spoke about that work. Somebody found some neural networks used in something else, and he spoke about that. Somebody told us what they understood about deep learning and machine learning and how they are different. So everybody at least broke that resistance and saying, no, not my area. And they started putting things together. So probably I just put together something worth 5 minutes, but then I heard other team members worth 5 minutes. So collectively at the end of 1.5 hours, I had so much more knowledge in very simple terms. So at least now the moment I hear what is artificial intelligence, I don't have a resistance. I say, no, not my area. I'm okay. I at least understand some part of it. Okay. So this I can't do it has to go away and it has to change into I can do it. It's not easy. It's not as easy as saying, no, just do away with can't and make it a can. But slowly, bit by bit, you have to learn and you have to continuously tell yourself, in fact, hypnotize yourself that I can do it, I can do it. And slowly you'll find yourself comfortable and you can actually achieve it and do it. All right. We'll move to the next slide. Now see the positive side of change. Okay. So change is not that something we should resist. Change is not something we should resist. Change is something we should accept. We should not accept it grudgingly. We should in fact accept it with a smile. So this change will have certain good things also that will come with that. You remember that glass half empty and half full? So it's up to us. See, there is nothing in life that is absolutely positive or absolutely negative. The glass is always half full. It's just that you have to now focus on the positive side of change. So look at the water in the glass, don't see what the empty space. So see what that change management will do. You will reach your milestone faster. There will be some improvement. There will be growth. There will be better leadership, more belief in leadership. People will feel motivated. So there are a lot of positive aspects of that change, which is going to be implemented or which you have to implement or which you have to accept. So focus on the good parts of it and how it's going to change your life for the better. So that positivity and change should happen together. So change should not be taken as a necessary tablet and you take it and you have water. Change has to be seen as something that will improve. So like Gita says, जो हो रहा है वो भी अच्छा है, जो होगा वो भी अच्छा है. So you have to assume that whatever is happening will be for the better. And this is something that you may not see immediately in the short run. In the long run, you will realize that it is good. When all this IT came into India, I remember we were not very happy with it. When all this computer science, information technology happened, or so much of advancement in telecom happened, we were not happy. And we also had this feeling that if everything gets automated, we will lose jobs, things will be different, life will change. But now when there is all this lockdown, corona, people not very comfortable going out, however, you still see that despite everything, in the safety of our home, we are not missing a FDP of this level, which you would have actually had to leave your family, go to Haridwar, listen to it, sleep in a new room. Maybe you're not comfortable with that. You're not comfortable leaving kids at home. So we have not lost out on anything which was significant because we adopted this information technology at the right time. So we let telecom advance and we adopted it. We bought a smartphone. We let information technology advance and we learned how to use all those apps or softwares or the new hardware. So because we accepted all those change and we got comfortable with that change, you can see the benefit today. So now when you look back, you realize that that change was for the better. And good that Rajiv Gandhi thought and had that foresight and he allowed information technology and computers to get introduced to our country. Otherwise, at that point in time, except for his leadership, the rest of his party, the rest of the country was just not interested in all that coming into the country because we were a population based country. So we had a lot of anxiety about things getting automated. So we were more labor intensive then. Okay. So now when we look back, we realize no, it's been good for us. Work from the world over can come into India, so people can outsource work in US or in Europe, and it can easily come to India. Can easily do that value addition and send it back because now we are connected. So rather than our jobs going away, probably a lot of jobs from other countries have started coming into India because there's also labor arbitrage. So change, you have to see the positive side and accept it as something that will be good, but we will realize maybe later. Sometimes you don't see the good part and say, नहीं क्या अच्छा हो रहा है मुझे बताओ कोरोना में हम सब बंद हो गए, we are in jails. So what is good about it? Maybe later we will realize, and I think we've already started realizing that we are now becoming closer with the family values. We are now getting more time to interact with kids. Otherwise, we were always busy, no time traveling. So now that it's happened, and there was a lot of issues when it happened. But now, when you look back, you will realize that things are good. Maybe after another 6 months, you will realize that this was a very significant thing to happen, though it looked very bad when it happened. Okay, so always see the positive side of change. Right? We go to the next slide. Now you have to choose which key to press. Do you want to be the one on whom the change is forced upon and you don't get a choice? So your manager tells you, no, no, ये तो करना ही है, ये तो management ने बोला. So you say, okay. So you you submit yourself to implementing that change. So do you want to be somebody on whom the change is implemented, or do you want to be the change agent? All right. Who is the change agent? The one who thinks of the new ideas, talks about it, pushes it, and then sees it getting implemented. One very excellent example of change agent is Professor Muhammad Yunus. If you've not heard of him, he's a Nobel laureate. He is an academician, and that's why this example is very important. He is a professor of economics from Bangladesh. and he is the one who thought something out of box, and he thought that we can actually lend money to women who are basically housewives, not literate, not financially literate, never having worked, and we can teach them to start some small startup, some small business of their own, and they will return my money back to me with interest, and then I will have more money, and then I will lend to more people. Okay? That was such a radical thought. Nobody was buying his idea, and he kept writing this as a conceptual paper and publishing it in journals and trying to speak to people and convince them that this is going to be more profitable financial service as compared to banking also, and people laughed at him. Then finally one friend of his who was running an NGO and he was spending a lot of money on social impactful activities, he told him, ठीक है बहुत सुन लिया तेरा, now I'm giving you this amount, you prove it and show me with numbers that this can be done, it's viable and it's profitable. Okay, so now Professor Yunus had fun, so he created a Grameen Trust, and now he had to convince women to borrow from him and do it. Now that again was a very difficult exercise. Talking to women in a Muslim country like Bangladesh is not a joke. So there was a fatwa on his head saying कि हमारी बेटी से बात करता है, हमारी बहू से बात करता है, he's trying to corrupt them and he's trying to influence them, he's trying to force them to start business. And there was a parda system obviously in Bangladesh. So that again became an issue, how to implement his idea. Finally, one lady who was a widow and she was thrown out from her family and she had 2 kids to feed, she went to him and she said, you teach me how to do business, I'll do it because I want my kids to survive, we don't have any money. So he taught her how to handle money, how to do business, how to maintain that khata, and he taught her how she should return the money with interest. So once she learned it and implemented it, she said, okay, now I have understood it. Now you don't go and speak to women because everybody is very annoyed with you. I will go and convince them. Okay? So she became the person who went to houses and convinced women to come out of the Parda system, start doing some small work together collectively as a group, and then borrow from this person and do the business and then return the money. All right. And now that is a joint liability group where the group collectively is responsible for returning the money. So they borrowed from this Professor Yunus and they started doing work and then they would return the money. And that financial empowerment made these women so confident and motivated. They even had a say in the household decision. It changed their lives. So they then went and spoke to other women, and a lot of them created small groups and started borrowing. Then the next village, the next village, the next district, and then this became a rage the world over. So now we have this as a microfinance service in all countries. Okay? One man and one academician and one professor. Look at the change he brought. Amazing. It is really amazing, this kind of financial service that exists and the kind of change it brings. Okay. And so let us not be the one on whom the change is implemented. Let us be the one who has thought of something new. It can be something as big as a new financial service. It can be something very small. But let's be a change agent. And that's very important. Let us be the one who will implement some change. We'll go to the next slide. Okay. So we've realized that there are changes we will make. There are changes that will happen in the system. There are changes that will happen in the business, in the environment, in the family. There are changes which will be forced on us. So dealing with change is a constant. So we will always have some change or the other, or maybe multiple changes happening at the same time. So we can see these emojis. How do we want to handle our life with all these changes happening? So do we want to just be grumpy? Do we want to smile and say, oh, अच्छा है, चलो कुछ नया करेंगे? we want to be very angry and annoyed and say, what is this? Roj naya naya idea aa jata hai. So how we want to handle all these constant changes every day is something that the button is with us. You can't stop the changes from happening. If you look at your life, how you were living a few years ago is very different from how you are living today. Okay, how you spent your days when you were your child's age is very different from how he lives his childhood. So things are changing and you can't stop it. But then what you can decide is how you are going to react to that change. Which phase is it that you are going to have? A happy phase, a contented phase, a tolerating phase, a very unhappy and irritated phase is what you have to decide. And that choice is yours. Nobody can annoy you or irritate you except yourself. You have to know this, that nobody can touch your feelings. It is you who decide which emotion you are going to adopt. All right, we'll go to next slide. These are words of Mother Teresa. I alone cannot change the world. Okay, sometimes we get this feeling, okay, what ho gaya, change sun liya, but what can I do? So I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the water to create many ripples. So even if you see it from that perspective, maybe there's a whole ocean and you threw a stone, so there were 4, 5, 10 ripples. So what is the big impact? I remember one very small story where there was a cyclone and a lot of fishes came to the shore. And then there was a very small child of maybe 5 years, and he was picking up one fish, running to the water and throwing it in the water. And there were millions of such fishes lying on the shore. And this boy was continuously doing it, getting tired, but still doing it. So his mother comes to him and he says, तुम क्या कर रहे हो? मतलब क्या फर्क पड़ता है? इतनी सारी fishes हैं. There's so many fishes lying on the shore. One fish that you pick up and put, how does it make a difference? So this child said, इस मछली को फर्क पड़ता है. The one in my hand, that fish gets impacted. So I can't put all the fishes back, but the one that I'm putting back, it makes a difference to this one fish. Okay, and that is very significant. And that you don't worry about changing the world, but still make that ripple effect. And so that's important, that maybe you have put back only 10 fishes, but those 10 fishes got a rebirth. And that action of yours was significant for those 10. So that's very important, that don't lose your patience, don't get demotivated, that even if I am the only one who's going to be conscious about switching off lights when I go out of the classroom, how does it make a difference? Even in our university, the electricity bill runs into a few lakhs. So though when I go out, I make it a point, I ask the student to switch it off, but before I leave, either I switch off or the student switches it off. But then somebody tells me, क्या फर्क पड़ता है आपके एक conscious होने से? But that's okay. At least I am doing my bit. I'm making a small ripple, but that's okay. Maybe through that, my students are learning something and they will remember to do it all the time. Maybe some of my colleagues will appreciate it and also replicate it. I don't know how much the impact will be and how far. However, that small action of mine is making a small ripple, and that's okay. Let's do it. Okay? So even if you feel that becoming a change agent will have no significant impact, still go ahead and do it. Don't judge it. Don't try to see in the bigger picture where this small contribution helps. No. Every small stone, however small, will create a ripple. And that ripple is created by you. So make that change. It only takes one person to start a ripple of change. Sometimes we have this feeling, and I've seen it very prominently, especially in academics, that if there is a good idea, we want everybody to come with us and then we will talk about it or implement it. So we don't want to do anything alone. Okay? I don't know why. but we always feel that okay, even if we are signing a petition, सब लोग sign करेंगे तो मैं करूँ, कोई नहीं करेगा तो I will also not. Very prominent emotion. And so it is important to understand that it only takes one person to start a ripple of change. So even if others don't believe in that idea or they are scared to implementing it, be that one first person to implement it without fear. And that's very important and very difficult. Okay? So to be the first one to stick your head out and do something different is something that we are not comfortable with. We are more comfortable when we have a group with us and everybody is doing it together, so we don't get singled out. However, it's not possible. So 9 out of 10 ideas or changes will die out because others did not agree to it and do it with you. So be a little bold, show a little courage, and be that one first person to start it. Once it starts, then everybody will follow. Okay, that's a herd mentality. Nobody wants to be first, but nobody minds being second, third, fourth, fifth in doing that same action. So be bold and be that first change agent for that activity. All right, we go to next slide. It is time to implement the learnings. This whole week has been a lot of gyan, a lot of ideas, very nicely put, very nicely discussed. But now it is time to implement all that we learned. It's now time to become a good leader and a positive leader. So there are all kinds of leaders. There are these autocratic leaders who say, Acha, I'm the boss, listen to me, do it my way. No, be a good, positive leader. Think win-win. Don't think about yourself. Don't think about your promotion. Think win-win. Think about everybody else. In fact, think about others and they in turn will think about you. You talk well about others, they will speak well about you. You push them to do good things and they in turn will help you do whatever you want to. Okay. So a good positive leader uplifts everyone. So you're a team player and that's very important. Nothing gets achieved in life without teamwork. So it is important that you uplift everybody. And that should be the crux behind any change that you think of. All it takes is you, the best version of you. So you have to do, we don't have to wait. We don't have to wait till I become a head of department or till I become a center head for something to be implemented. You can be, if let's say you are the junior most and you don't have anybody who reports into you, you are still a leader and you have yourself to lead. Okay. And so wherever you are, whichever position, you have to see yourself as a leader and try and work for everybody who is related to you and is your stakeholder. So that positivity in leadership is very important, and it's important not just to know things. You may know 100 things, you've learned a lot of things this week, but that one thing that you imbibe and implement, that is the most important thing, that is a takeaway from this week. Okay? So focus on implementation of what you have learned. Otherwise, all these good PPTs, sessions, all your time spent is all one big zero unless you implement something. So I would really convince you all to implement the learnings that you have. All right, let's go to next slide. Think of reaching the goal constantly. Never lose focus of what you want to reach. So that bigger picture, that final destination is very important. Okay? To get there faster, to reach the goal, the mission, the vision, whatever it is, whether it's your personal goal, whether it's the organizational goal, to get there faster, one is allow yourself to think differently, think out of box. So even if the moment you are told cost cutting and the first thing that strikes you is, okay, we should retrench a few people, no. Think, is there any other way of doing it? You just want to reach the goal of cost cutting. Right? So cost cutting can be done in different ways. So think what is not the routine method of doing it. There can be a different way of doing it. Replace I with we. Sometimes we are constantly trying to reach our personal goal. So let's say my goal is to become a professor. Just example. In that case, let's say if I am only bothered about my goal, then you will find that others do not support me in that goal because it doesn't include them. It is my personal goal. It is not the group's goal or the team's goal. They don't support me. The other things might happen that probably they may probably try to pull me backwards. Okay? So it is important that we do not think selfishly about I. We always think about the we. So think of the whole group, of your entire family, of your entire department, of your entire enterprise group or branch. So anything that's good for everybody, that is important and that should be the focus. Okay? And then we should always include others in understanding where we want this group to move, in what direction and what ways. So let's say we convince them that let's make this the center of excellence, which will be maybe world renowned. And if that happens, then it is going to shine on everybody's CV that I am from this particular department, which is so famous and everybody knows it. So everybody is a asset from that department. So let's say if there's a common goal that we talk to everybody about and tell them, let's discuss how we can go about, what we can do, so that slowly we reach that in the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and involve everybody. Okay? So that teamwork is very important. So any goal which has a we, it worries about everything and involves everything, will happen easily and faster. Think win-win. So don't think about win-lose. I should gain, you should lose. That's not a good idea. Always think win-win, that something should be good for me, but also good for others. And that's when you will get everybody's support and contribution in achieving the goal. Do it with a smile. So that positivity focus, that though it may be difficult to implement, however, it may have some useful silver lining. So always make sure that your attitude is positive. Have faith in God that whatever will happen for the best. And do it with a smile. Okay. Next slide. Okay. Thank you. Slide is always the best, right? What I would like to end it with is that we've discussed a lot of interesting things throughout, and even in this particular session. And now the knowledge is with you. However, you have to start taking small steps to implement all these aspects in your life, and you will actually see yourself evolving as an excellent person, whatever you are doing. And that's important. You might be doing, probably maybe you're just a ticket seller on the bus, but do it the best way. That excellence of whatever you do it the best, and anybody who has experience with you remembers you for it. So if you are a teacher and you've taught us a topic, it should be so well that your student remembers it rest of his life. That okay, that topic, the moment he thinks of it, he thinks of you and what you taught, and it's clear. So whatever you do, it should be towards excellence. So even that implementation of change, the final objective should be excellence. Okay. Thank you. I'm done with the PowerPoint. Anybody has any queries or something to ask, let me know.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, all. And I hope all the participants are waiting for the exam. So we will just now take a short break of just 2 minutes. You can come and go if you want to drink water or you are getting nervous, I must say. Thank you, ma'am. I would like to
Ma'am.
invite Diksha ji, Ms. Diksha, to present a vote of thanks to our speaker of this session.
Yes, thank you so much,
Diksha.
sir. Thank you so much, Professor Shweta Anand ma'am, for such an enlightful session. The way you told how to change for excellence is really very informative. And the crux of this is that everyone should have to take initiative for making a good change in the society, and don't go with the wrong person. And you should have to take the initiative for that. And always do the when you are going to do the work for change, you just do it with a smile, and so that positivity should be there, and you're able to achieve the goal with the best your efforts. And now I will end my words with the shloka of Rigveda, Adeva Nama Bhava Ketu Ragne, which means that only the best people who become the leader of the public do not let the leadership reach into the hands of a characterless people or wrong people. Here the means is that, as ma'am explained, you should have to take the initiative for making a good change in the society. So if you are not going for that, it will harm you. So you should take initiative for that. Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a wonderful session. Thank you, ma'am.
Dear participants, stay connected with us. I am sharing the examination link in the chat as well as in the WhatsApp group. So you have around 30 minutes to attempt 30 questions, which I am going to share it now. Please attempt the exam. And please attempt the exam first, and then we will continue. Please mute all. Please attend the exam first, and then we will continue with the valedictory session. The time is limited to 30 minutes only.